So it's going to be an amazing interview today because we have a wonderful person on the other line with us. We have Alexus Terry. And today
Hello.
we have this guest who not only embodies what it means to be a strategic leader with a heart for people, with a background in business administration, and a passion for creating supportive environments. She is a director of operations at Community 180. She brings a powerful mix of operational expertise and a deep commitment to human resources, making her a true builder of thriving teams and communities. It's a pleasure to have her on my show. Thank you, Alexis.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm happy to be here.
Man, so did I at least say that correctly, or did I kind of butcher the community 180? How do y'all say it?
No, I mean, we say community 180, but there are people who say community 180. It's completely up to you. You still said what it is written down, so it's okay.
Okay. All right. So, to start off, you want to tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so born and raised in California, I attended Chaffey College where I obtained my accounting degree, and then I transferred to my illustrious HBCU, Houston Tilton University, where I studied business administration. And I actually had two concentrations of accounting and marketing. And I also got a little taste of like student government association because I had the chance to be the chief justice, and so I dealt a lot with judicial affairs within the school. And upon graduation, I started working with Community 180, which is the nonprofit, and also branching into our church called the Promise Center Church. And we are dedicated to our mission is building bridges, creating impact. So, not just handing out resources, but also giving you resources that you can apply to your everyday life. So, we offer like financial literacy classes. We have a lot of different partnerships with banks, physical health institutions to really help allow people to know the resources in their community and know that there are people who are trying and willing to help them.
Okay. Man, that sounds like an amazing place to go if you need some assistance.
Absolutely.
And, just for a little bit more background, once you graduated from the school in Texas, from the HBCU in
Mhm.
Texas, and correct me, is that the only one that's in the North Texas area or just in the Austin district?
It's the only one in Austin, but Texas itself, I believe, either has 7 or 9 HBCUs. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I do know that it's either 7 or 9 in all of Texas.
Okay. Well, that's still a small group, but it has a lot of influential people there.
Absolutely.
And so you graduated and then you just kind of fell into that role, or how did it go
Yes.
about?
No, like when you say fell into it, I literally fell into it. Because also during the transition of me graduating, my family was physically moving from California to Texas. And so in that transition of moving, getting my mind right, because now I'm in a new space. I went to school in Austin, but now we're living in the greater Houston area. So trying to get all of that together, I actually met my boss through my sister because she is one of his mentees. And he was kind of expressing to my sister how he really needed help with his organization. And so she was telling me about it. And I was like, oh, like that sounds like something I would be interested in. And so I had a conversation with him and we really got along. Our visions kind of aligned as far as our heart for the community and for God's people. And so it was history from there.
Okay. That's good that it was organic because, that's how a lot of good relationships actually form.
Absolutely.
So I would like to ask you, a lot of people are inspired to help others, but you've consistently turned that inspiration into action in your church and mission work. Where did you get that builder's mindset and belief that you don't just talk about your problems, but you build a solution?
So that is foundational. Growing up, in my household, there would be times where my dad would say, you know, we're not going to celebrate Thanksgiving this year. We're going to go to the homeless shelter and we're going to go feed people. Or he would find a church who's passing out food and we would go and do that instead of having certain holidays or just regular weekends. Like, we're not going to go to the park this weekend. We're going to go donate, help out, serve in this capacity. So I think having that mindset instilled in me that it's community, and if we don't have community, we don't really have much of anything, that really helped blossom me as a young woman into recognizing like that is true. Like, community really is everything, and we have to be here for one another.
Hmm. That's really moving. Do you mind just speaking about other times rather than Thanksgiving that your dad set the example and led your family to serve? Because
Yeah.
we could, it's, I guess it's more of a known thing that, around the holiday times or when it gets
Mhm.
cold, people would like to give, maybe because they have that heart to. But for
Mhm.
it to actually be a stable foundation, do you have other examples in your life growing up that your dad, put the community first?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it was a whole family thing. It wasn't just my dad, right? It was my
Mhm.
mother, my grandparents, and also my church. So my church, we are partnered up with our local food bank. I'm speaking of my church back home in California right now. We were partnered with the local food bank, and so I think it was every fourth Saturday. I can't remember which specific Saturday, but on certain Saturdays, we would have the food pantry. And so we would open up the doors of our church and allow people who are in need to come and do the food pantry. We also had a nurse, and she would do like a mini clinic, a mini check-in with the different people to make sure that everything was okay with them. And we also had like clothing donation piles. So we allowed people to like, we made it to where they could actually feel like they're shopping. And so we would have those racks, those racks you can have, and we
Mhm.
would stand them up and we would align the clothes and have everything look really nice so they can feel like they're not just being given something, but actually feel like I'm shopping for this. And so I really enjoyed doing that as a kid. And sometimes I would even be like, Mom, are we going? Like, come on, get ready. And so that's really when I knew that it wasn't just me being told to do something. Now I wanted to go do it. And also just being able to speak with people and hear their stories, I think that really played a big part as well. Because they encouraged us, like, go talk to them, like, have a conversation, maybe give them a hug. Because sometimes they want to be looked at, we all want to be looked at as people, as human beings, and not just someone who is here to receive something. So we have to, or it was our mission to bring the humanity back into things.
That really goes into just saying having a servant mentality rather than just a receiving mentality. And that your whole family embodied that, that's really inspirational.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd like to take this time. So this question might be loaded. So if you need, just a second to expand or, to even, separate it and dissect it, go
Mhm.
ahead. But thinking back to your younger self, what was some what was a key conversation or a piece of wisdom from a family member, mentor, or even a book that you might have read that just planted a seed of building legacy, not just making a living? And to finish this statement, back from what you shared with us already, you already have so many different disciplines that you're doing, not only working in your community in Houston, but then also graduating with two concentrations. Do you mind just diving into those and speaking what started the seed process? Who seeded that, and how
Mhm.
was it watered, throughout your journey?
So something, I don't even remember how I heard this. I don't know if it was somebody talking to me. I don't know if I heard this on TV. I don't know if it was a sermon. I don't know if it was a book. But the phrase, if you have a dollar, you have something to give, is always something that I keep in my back pocket. Even just yesterday, I don't carry cash. Like, it's very rare that I keep cash on me just because we're in the digital space. Everything is on the card. We have Apple Pay and different things of that sort. So I don't really carry cash. But yesterday I went to the library And as I was on my way back, I got stopped at the light. And I looked to my left and there was a homeless man. And I was like, man, I really don't have much cash with me, but I'm going to give him what I have. And so I gave it to him and I didn't even think anything of it. And then I came back home and I got a notification on my phone and it was Cash App and somebody had sent me money. So not only was it like I had my dollar to give and so I gave it out, but also that it came back to me like triple, quadruple fold, like also knowing that God covers us through all things. And if we stay obedient to what he's telling us to do, whether that's in the moment or just over a long span of time, that he's going to make sure that we have what we need and we will never lack. And then kind of the second part of the question about, can you repeat the second part of the question about Houston Tillotson?
Nah, no problem at all. I know it was a mouthful of what I said. So just to already recap, you have key conversations not only with God, but with yourself about how to align what you do. Now, or that might even be part of like the planted aspect of things. Do you remember like a physical person that you kind of mirrored after or that actually mentored you to get this character that now that you have, two disciplines in college and you actively serve in your community?
Okay, so my dad always calls me like the different one. Like I always want to do something different from the crowd. If everybody wants Applebee's, I want to go to Chili's. Or if everybody wants to buy the blue popsicles, I want to buy the orange one. So everything that I do comes from a stance of I don't want to be like everybody else. And so in my family, a lot of people either went to the military or they picked up like nursing or different things of that sort. And so when it came my turn to decide what I wanted to do, I was like, I'm really good at math. So let's go with accounting. And so I got into Chafee and I was like, okay, yeah, like I could do this accounting stuff. It makes sense to me. And what I really like is that there is a right answer. Like English and other things of that sort, like it's too art is very open-ended and that stresses me out because I'm like, I don't know, did I do it right? Like what does everybody else's look like? But with accounting, with math, there's a right, there's a wrong, there's checks and balances, it has to make sense. And so I felt like that was perfect for me. But as I was going through my journey at Chafee and I started to join different clubs, I joined the film club, which really I joined the film club because that's my brother's passion and I just wanted to hang out with my brother. And so I got to do many different things when it comes to filmmaking, as far as I was the creative set designer for a film that actually just entered the film festival, I think last year. So that was really exciting. I got to do sound and, I just got to see a whole different part of my creativity kind of pop out and blossom. And so that's where the second concentration of marketing came in because I saw like, okay, I am creative in this way. I can come up with different concepts and different things to help bring the picture to life. And so it was kind of out of me trying to be different where I started to see different things within myself that I like to do and kind of grow from there.
Okay. Do you mind explaining what Chafee is? Just because I'm not too familiar with that.
Yes, absolutely. So Chafee College is a two-year institution, which they have like three locations. There's Rancho Cucamonga, Fontana, and the Chino campus.
Hmm.
And ooh, I am not showing off as a good alum right now, but they have, I
But it's
think
like
they,
a community college rather than a 4-year.
yes, it is a community college. They have a plethora of degrees. And I don't know, I absolutely loved my community college. Like, I think Chafee was the best place for me to start over.
Let's talk about that at least, because background as well. I'm a college graduate,
Hmm.
and I have plenty of friends, and colleagues that didn't go the traditional route of going to college, and they just hit the workforce. And I can explain it myself, but usually to them, they see it on the opposite side of why would I want to get into debt?
Hmm.
Could you talk about maybe some of the benefits that you received, from a college degree, and what was your experience?
Yes, absolutely. When it comes to being in debt, if you don't want to be in debt, start at a community college. Because not only will you get the resources from your FAFSA, but community college is just such a lower cost that by the time it's time for you to transfer or, graduate with a transfer, not only do you have the knowledge, but you also have a different set of scholarships as a transfer student. And some schools, what I utilized was the California Community College transfer to HBCU pipeline. And so that was a whole nother set of scholarships. And a lot of times when people go to community college and then graduate from universities, they graduate with little to no debt. Like even for me, um, I don't have much debt from HT at all. And also community college, there's people from so many different walks of life. So you don't have to feel like you're too old. You don't have to feel like you don't have time for it. Like I literally had classes with grandparents in it,
Mhm.
with people who have full-time jobs. So you don't have to feel like you'll be out of place at a community college.
Well, I'd like to, transition to what you're doing now. Just because we talked off screen, I know that you just got your BA as well,
Mhm.
and you're going to be preparing for law school.
Yeah.
That's an important thing. It's again something else that someone doesn't really want to because of maybe the work that it involves. But
Mhm.
talk to me about your daily habits or disciplines you're implementing now to build a foundation for your future career.
Yes, absolutely. Something that I'm implementing now is waking up early so that I have time for myself. I know, and I'm YouTube University down. Like, if I have a question about anything, I go straight to YouTube. And so, as I am preparing for this journey, I follow different YouTubers who are currently in law school, seeing their different point of views on things and seeing their day to day and allowing myself to kind of build my schedule now so that when I get there, I'm already in the routine of things. Like I'm a very routine based person. I wake up at the same time. I do the exact same things in the same order every single day. So by allowing myself to wake up early, I'm only waking up at I set my alarm for 5:55, but we all know
Mhm.
that I snooze that. But the goal is to wake up at 5 a.m. so that I have the time to do all of the things, spend time with God, work out, eat breakfast, all of the things to pour into myself before I get into the things of the day.
Okay. And then at times, do you do like a personal audit of yourself to see, okay, I'm trying this for a month. Oh, this did work, or I didn't really receive this result. Do you switch it up, or are you just more headstrong on I'm gonna keep pushing and seeing if I can change myself?
Yeah, I actually do weekly audits. What did I do this week? What did I like? What did I not like? And how could I tweak it? I'm not gonna lie and say I'm not hard on myself. I'm very hard on myself, especially if I hit snooze too long and end up waking up a little later. But I'm trying to get in the practice of also listening to my body and knowing like if I don't work out today, it's okay. If I sleep in a little bit more, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, God is either gonna ask you to get some rest or he's gonna make you. And I'd
Mhm.
rather listen when he asks than when he makes me.
I shake my head in agreement just because, you can definitely be your own personal enemy. No matter how much you talk to your best friends, no matter how much you talk to your family, and you can tell them about everything that's going on, you're really the only person that internally knows everything that you're saying and everything that you're putting into your aspirations. So you can also be your biggest disappointment as well if you're so self-critical.
Absolutely. And I am very self-critical. Like, it's a journey to, because it's so easy for us to give everybody else grace, but when it comes to us, like, why can't we give ourselves that same grace? But I think it's because we know ourselves and we know the potential that we have, so there's a certain expectancy. But sometimes it's okay to be like, no, I need to go to sleep right now. Today probably wasn't the most productive. I probably didn't knock off everything on the list, but I still did a lot of stuff, and that's okay.
I'd like to tie this up into maybe some of our earlier questions. Do you have someone that you look up to that feels like has a good balance of self-grace, but then also discipline within themselves that you go to and you ask questions about? Or is that still something that you're trying to find yourself, through YouTube University?
I don't know. That's hard because I try to not put anybody on a pedestal because anything can happen to anybody and we're all human. But there are people that I ask questions. I ask my grandparents a lot of questions. I'm always in their face asking something. So definitely my grandparents, they have a lot of wisdom to share. And they don't mind giving it. Like, if anybody has a question about anything, like, they will sit there and take the time with you to answer the questions, to talk through it. So definitely my grandparents and my parents. My boss, I he has a lot of wisdom that he imparts in me. He also gives me a lot of freedom to try different things. And so I think that helps a lot too. Um, and who else? And honestly, yeah, I think I am still looking on YouTube University as well.
Mhm.
But I think for the main ones, definitely like my grandparents, my parents, and my boss.
That's key. That's key. It's almost like a running theme nowadays, stepping away from just the apprenticeship and mentor dynamic. I spoke about this in an earlier interview where this entrepreneur, Noah Thompson, he didn't have no mentoring to, talk about the books, to talk about the skills, to even talk about marketing.
Hmm.
And he had to do a lot of legwork himself. And he spoke about compiling different success stories from other people.
Yeah.
And I've spoke about this to a younger crowd, my brother and then his friends, um, about finding mentorship, but it's not typical that you can find one person that can give you a lot of time because a lot of people are working. So
Hmm.
it's your opportunity to pretty much make a Frankenstein's monster for a mentor. You grab certain parts that you admire from people and you kind
Hmm.
of bring in your own unique style to it. And that sounds like what you've done.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think it's important to be, I think the word is intergenerational, but allowing yourself to not stick with the people who are around your same age group, because the people who are older than us, they do have a lot of wisdom. And a lot of them, like, I think a lot of people are scared of being judged because there are a lot of people in different age groups who judge other people outside of their age groups. But I mean, at the end of the day, you'll never know unless you try, unless you walk up to them and extend that invitation and see what they're willing to actually tell you.
I think that's very valuable. And I just would like to add to that statement, it can also go in the other direction. So a lot of
Yes.
people look for wisdom from an older crowd, but then also there's a lot of people that have life experience and also have thinking knowledge that could be
Mhm.
younger than you. And since you
Yes.
already put them in that box of, oh, I've been where you are, I'm past it, you're you're lacking the potential that you could get from them.
Absolutely. Age should not be a limit
It
at
shouldn't.
all.
And at this moment in time, I don't really think I'm qualified to say what could be, you know, outliers or even common traits. But
Mhm.
when you begin to do the work, you're able to identify similar
Mhm.
characteristics that people obtain or they start to speak about.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't go as far as calling it talking points, but I would confidently say it's the mentality that
Yeah.
comes along with it. So I'd like to talk now about money. I'd like to talk about money and, future aspects of that regards. Um, Sometimes, the running topic is generational wealth in the terms of money, but your path seems to be about building intellectual knowledge. and social capital.
Hmm.
And how do you see your law degree as a strategy asset for your family and your community?
Yes. And this kind of goes to the question that you asked earlier, is what is like a phrase that has stuck with you? But I remember I had just moved to this city in California called Victorville. It was my junior year in high school, and my English teacher, she was speaking to us, and she said, people could take your car, they could take your house, they could take your money. But one thing that they cannot take from you is your knowledge, what you've learned among the years, and what you have practiced yourself. So I think knowing that in the blink of an eye, all of this stuff can be taken, but you can't take what I know. You can't take what I've learned, the connections that I've built. So knowing that education is vitally important, I think that's what I will be instilling in the future generations. Pick up that book, take that class, even if it's not super like educational, like accounting or something, like a cooking class, because there's always something that you can build that on
Mm-hmm.
and go from there.
You know, I think that's a very important quote that you just said. And you said you got that from your teacher?
Yes,
She
my
was doing her job. She was doing
teacher.
her job right. I don't mean to cut your
Yes.
wisdom, but that reminds me of something I've heard from Earl Nightingale. And I believe Earl Nightingale actually read this from a book. And without giving, I would probably have to go back and see, so I can give the correct credit. But the information was said, everything that you can find on a human, you can also find on a pig or a horse. And the only
Mm,
thing that separates us is our mind. So
mhm.
actually training your mind, giving it its proper attention, can actually elevate you in all different types of verticals that you won't just get just operating blindly. And even to go into your point, I know after I got my 4-year degree, I was on the fence of saying, where do I want to commit to? Because I did a lot of mathematical classes and I got my degree out of state.
Mhm.
And getting a degree out of state, going back to your original home, if you don't already put the forward thinking on how you're going to network and step up into a career, you're pigeonholing yourself by
Yes, you
just
get
getting the degree.
stuck.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So at that moment in time, I was doing valet to just bring money in rather than
Mhm.
just sitting on the couch. But I kept my eyes open and I kept remembering stuff from college about, doing it yourself or getting, more education and knowledge. And I saw that trade schools were becoming popular, and then there wasn't a lot of oversight. If you
Mm,
were experienced enough, you could do anything you want by yourself.
yes, definitely. And I think people sleep on trade schools. You don't have to go to college. You can pick up a trade, a skill, and you will be just as, if not more successful than somebody who has a 4-year degree.
I
Like, I
definitely
love
think
trade
so.
schools.
And I think it does kind of get like a bad connotation, probably just from, I would say the word marketing from
Mm,
as we were growing up to now, but it's starting to get exposed again because I'd like to say money's involved. Money might have been the driving force back then on saying, education can actually get you finance, better finances. But
mhm.
now with AI, with, you know, bad teaching, even in the institution or, one-sided teaching, you can
Yeah.
definitely limit yourself. So having a trade and being versatile, but then also being able to think can set you apart in many ways that only comes from the experience itself.
And not only that, but I feel like a trade can't get taken over by AI. If my house
Mhm.
gets flooded right now and I need to replace these floors, I'm gonna call a carpenter. I can't ask my computer to fix that. So I just think that trades, you're irreplaceable.
I definitely think so as well. And I think it's only given it its flowers now and saying that it's not a belittling job.
Yes, that absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So
We
right now you're
need
in.
plumbers and all of that. Like, it is okay.
No, it definitely is. And wherever it's going to go, again, all you got to do is think, and collaboration as well.
Yeah.
Earlier we talked about community, and I'd like to switch gears and ask you this question that's a mix of community and the church.
Hmm.
So you might be familiar, you might not, but I'm going to explain the situation. When churches would like to do fundraisers or fun, fundraisers or drives for either food or money, I've seen it sometimes where they would get a group of parents that have kids, and they would create signs and stand in the medians of roads, and advertise, do you know Jesus, or would you like to donate?
Hmm.
And I kind of have mixed feelings about that, where I can sympathize with the message.
Yeah.
No, being a follower of Christ, I understand the message of trying to reach out and speak with people, having a good faith background.
Hmm.
But it 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 unsettles me, because is this the best way to go about it? Because let's say we switched up the words on the sign, and you know let them be out there for more than just one day. Let's say they just didn't go home. Now these people could just be as on the same level of people that are unhoused.
Hmm.
And what really separates them besides just having parents that can take them home? So I'm asking you this question, maybe just for an open-ended conversation, nothing that has to be concrete, but what are your thoughts on it? And do you see any better alternatives that the youth in the community of the church could maybe better serve the church?
So are we speaking more on the donation aspect or of them being in the median in the streets?
We can speak on it all,
Okay.
because it could be on a safety aspect, or it could just
Mhm.
be on, what could be a better use of our time.
Yes, absolutely. So for the donation aspect, it is vitally important for your church to raise funds and to have a healthy money flow. Because I think a lot of people, they like to say, oh, the pastor's driving Mercedes and I had to walk to church. But I think that we're forgetting that above all else, the church, if you have that brick and mortar, is a business. We still have to pay the light bill just like y'all. We still have to pay rent or mortgage just like y'all. When you walk in, you want to feel that air conditioning, especially in this Texas heat. You want to be able to use the bathroom, have good water flowing. So it is important that we are able to maintain our building and have a place of worship. Um, there are different fundraising ways that you can go about it. I think as safety, I do not like when I see people in the medians. I think that's so unsafe. Even for in-house people, when I see them, like it hurts my heart because I wish that we had different places to put them where they could actually like sleep and be well, have things to do during the day so they're not just in the heat, in the cold, and just safety because people don't know how to drive. And that's not just a Texas thing, that's the thing, period. People can't drive. And so literally anything could happen. But specifically talking about our youth, I know one thing that we used to do when I was younger, we would have, what do we call it? I think we called it like our end of the year concert. And that's really where we did a lot of our fundraising. We had a great youth choir. All of us love singing. And so we would put on a concert, and I think the tickets were like $10 or $15. And not
Mhm.
only was it a concert, but it was also an award ceremony. So a lot of us got different awards. Most influential youth, and also for our leaders as well, the adults. But yeah, there definitely are safer ways to fundraise and make money, but I do think it is important for the church to fundraise and have a good money flow so that the Lord's house is well kept.
Yes, it's definitely. I think you said a key piece that some people do forget, that the church, bottom line, is a business.
Absolutely.
Even though it comes from a serving perspective, it still got lights to pay. It still got people to pay as well. Even though it can be a nonprofit, I think
Yes.
education on that is real important. But I like what your church has done, where it highlights skills that the youth might have. Let that be through choir, or let that even be through arts.
Yes.
And then advertising it like that, rather than just going off of people's emotions, and in a bad way, of
Yes.
seeing like, yeah, I'm a kid outside in the heat, can I get some of your change, or even
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
And then we
And
have to
this is
think
just,
about the health of our people too. Like, we don't need to be out here all day. Like you said, sweating in the heat, you could have a heat stroke. Like, a lot of people think, oh, they're younger, they're not gonna have to deal with that. Yes, they can. Our bodies overheat just as much as yours. So we have to take all that into consideration.
I would also like just to take in consideration of like your message. And I'm speaking specifically on the message of what people just put, out for people to see. And it's not just only the church of the kids, but also the people that are unhoused. Because this is coming from another personal experience. As I'm driving into work, I saw this person that was unhoused, and I was a couple cars back, so I couldn't really see his sign as much. And I thought it said, "I bet you won't ask me a question." And I was like, wow, that's actually,
Whoa.
like, yeah, that caught me off guard. And I was like, what question would I even ask him? How much time would I have just in the passing? But as I got closer, I reread that sign, and it said, "I bet you won't throw a quarter at me." And that flipped my mind. I was like, man, I'm looking for some type of give and take, like a stimulus aspect,
Conversation or something.
conversation piece, where I don't know you, but maybe just through life circumstances, you could give me a piece of knowledge. And then for that piece of knowledge, maybe whatever I have, I can give you. It might not be much, but, and I'm speaking in a personal aspect of some food that, in our household that we don't eat typically. Let's just say people's either gifted to us, or, it might just, we just don't eat it, because we thought it was good, but it's still sealed up food. I actually keep it in bags in my truck. And whenever I pass people, I'm like, hey, I don't have bread, I don't have money, but I have food. And so if you take it, I got it for you.
That's smart.
I actually got that same type of mindset from another person I was watching, and I wish I could give credit, because it was a real inspirational thing of just go bags. He would say in the month he would create 5 go bags, maybe 3 for women, 2 for men, having, specific items in there that women need, like hygiene, and then men, hygiene as well, but a mix of food, a blanket, and a backpack. And he would keep all that stuff in a backpack, coordinate it, and he just keep it in his trunk. And I was like, man, that's, that was a nice move too. And as I'm building for that goal, I'm starting with what I have. But I say that story to really maybe even stimulate the thought and idea that as I see these people that are unhoused, what could be the potential that you actually put to society? You're in the median. I've thought, actively, if you just even have trash bags and you just say, hey, any trash that you have in your car, I can take it. That not only cleans up the person's car, but that can also clean up the side and the highway too. I think it's real key that we just step away from the I need to be served. I need just to be given everything, and just thinking, how can I contribute and have the value for the marketplace?
So that's a very good question. And I know that something that I kind of have been thinking about real heavily is creating, like, I don't want to, I guess you could say like a homeless shelter, but I want it to be more than just a homeless shelter because there's so many homeless shelters. But I wanted to actually be a place of growth. And so something that I always thought of was like, why don't you make a homeless shelter that also has a campus, like a schooling to where people can pick up a trade, they could pick up a skill and be able to go back out into society and have something concrete to
Mhm.
not only help build their life, but to give back to society in some kind of way.
Are you familiar with events that are called like maker spaces?
No.
So I don't know if it's specific just in my region, but I know there is some in different cities. Where at
Hmm.
my local library, they have they have a maker space, and in this maker space, you can the library buys equipment. Let's just say it's a spiral binder or a 3D printer or a laser cutter as well,
Hmm.
and or even a heat press. And all depending on the intensity of the equipment, you might be able to take an intro class, but
Mm.
in this own space, you're allowed to use everything that the library has. You would have to bring in your own material, but
Hmm.
that's and essentially you're making in a space that's safe. And I know
I
in
love the library. I need to write that down.
yeah, makerspace, and it's not just specifically to the library, even though that I was introduced to it like that. But
Hmm.
it could also be even on like a subscription basis. I know a couple companies have that where it could be like leather binding or leather stitching, or even on a harder skill, like okay, you're gonna do like soldering and welding.
Hmm.
um I I'd
Love that.
be you definitely have to do your own research on how specific they get, but I do
Hmm.
know it's options. And to take that same template and like your thought was having a safe location and giving options on saying, okay, we can there's a food pantry here as well, on the fourth Saturday. But then let's just say on, the second Tuesday, we're opening up and we have these items that you can take, for a certain amount, not money wise, but per person. And now
Yeah.
we can help the community. Let that be trash cans, or let that just be trash bags, or maybe something else that the community might need. You know,
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna look into that. That sounds amazing. And I might want to join too. I love going to the library anyway, so
there's a lot of
that
value that you can get there for sure.
yes, absolutely.
So I guess at this moment too, do you mind talking about your what your current church, Community 180, is focusing on?
Yeah, so right now, well, actually, what's really funny is we have been trying to find a location for our church. My pastor has been doing online ministry for so long that God finally told him, like, okay, it's time for you to have like your building. And so since maybe February, we have been looking. I think I talked to you previously about this because we were talking about leaving the office
Hmm.
for us to put that back into the church. And so we did end up leaving the office, moved everything out this past week, and we signed the lease yesterday. We're renting from this church out in Houston on Aldine Bender, and it is beautiful. I'm gonna have to send y'all some pictures later, but I think I sent Kim some pictures, so ask her to see the pictures.
I'll check it
But
out.
it is a beautiful space, and it's it's amazing to see how God really will push you to the front of the line and say, like, this is yours. It came to a point where there were so many people trying to rent this space that the lady that we were communicating, I'm saying we, but really it was my boss. But the
Hmm.
lady that we were in communication with was like, God just told me that this is y'all space. And I couldn't shake that feeling. And so we signed the lease and we're looking forward to starting our actual services in October. We plan on having worship nights at first in October and then fully actually launching like our actual Sunday services in November. And our church space is heavily community focused as well. Um, tying in community 180 with the church aspect and allowing the community know that they do have a space. You know, we're supposed to be able to come to the church with a lot of different things, and we want to be what the church is supposed to be doing. Something our pastor says repeatedly is that we don't want to leave anybody behind. We don't want to leave anybody untouched. And so really just getting out into the community and trying to reach those people and allowing them a space to come and praise the Lord.
Amen. Amen. I want to ask you right now, what does the word success mean to you? And then has that definition changed over time from you being a young girl to a student now to a young woman?
Absolutely. When I was younger, I thought success meant you had to have $1 million and you had to live in a mansion with a pool and like a mini theater in your house and just all of the things. But I think right now, success to me means I have a community that I can fall back on and can rely on me. It means I am comfortable in my living and that I have enough to give back. And it also means that I have time for my friends. I'm successful enough to be able to take the time to go visit y'all, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
spend, you know, my week with y'all up there. And so I think now my success is more focused on happiness and really finding joy in life and not all of the material things.
That's really interesting. As I was listening to you, I heard the shift from success when you were younger. It's it's an individual thing. It's just a one person isolated incident to now as you're older and you've lived more life, success actually involves a lot of people along your way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's a key aspect. When we even talk about happiness and purpose, it it gets really hard to speak about those things when it's just yourself. That's that oxymoron of it. But when you have that community or you have people for inspiration or to even bounce ideas off of, you're able to find more of yourself ultimately growing within.
Another phrase that I learned, apparently there's many phrases,
Mhm.
but another phrase, this is a phrase that well, not the president right now, but the former president of my university said when it was our first dinner while we got onto Houston Tilson's campus. It was called the Queen's Tea. And she said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with your community. And so I think that's also what kind of helped shift my mind in that. And it's like, I don't want to do it alone. I want
Mhm.
to do it with the people around me. I want to share this with everyone.
You got me thinking right now about something that people speak about a lot with colleges, but maybe since you had the experience of going to a community, then coming out to Texas because you originated from a different state, and then going to an HBCU, how has your networking and relationships benefited from your from your experiences?
When I tell you my community college brought me out of my shell, like I never really was like super introverted. I've always been able to talk to people, but I think you had to talk to me first. You had to approach me first. But I think going into my HBCU specifically, it showed me a different side of me that I didn't know existed because it forced me, especially with me being in, you know, roles like student government or even my position with the cheer team and being the cheer manager, I had to go advocate. I had to be in certain rooms and say the different things. And I think that essentially helped me, especially with the moving from California to Austin now, well, I said a state to a city, but moving from California to Texas, it gave me a whole different network of people because it allowed me, since I got out of my shell, it allowed me to be able to talk to different people and to be in different rooms and network so I don't have to feel so alone. And in creating community for myself, I met this one friend And I started going with her to her grandfather's church in San Antonio. So now it's like I have people in Austin and I have a whole family in San Antonio that I know if I drive to San Antonio right now and I knock on Nana's door, she's going to open the door, give me a hug, and say, "Are you hungry?" So I think for me, it really was just coming out of my shell and allowing myself to network and take the opportunities to be in different rooms that really helped me in the transition of moving.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, all that's real important because you never you never know what you need until you go out there and get it.
Exactly.
And I wish I could give credit to um this statement as well. I'm gonna have to do better the next time I speak with you and I speak to other people. But just to give credit where credit's due, this saying goes, uh, my son, if I cannot leave you, or it goes, my son or daughter, if I cannot leave you an inheritance, the only thing I can leave you then is my ignorance.
Mm,
And pretty much it's, a lot of people think they want monetary things when someone passes. And if I don't get monetary things, then ultimately,
you
or,
left me
or, or you, yeah, or
right.
even like a wealth of knowledge. Let's just say, my dad is a carpenter, or, he was a salesman. And, just through walking around the house, I learned things. And ultimately, you at least get a base level knowledge of those skills that they perform. But if they didn't have none of that, and they didn't even communicate with you about what they were thinking, all they're going to really leave you is their ignorance of the world.
Yes, absolutely. I like that.
Man, no, it's fire. It's a fire quote. Um, so I like to end it with this question. You are a role model. You're a role model for young women. You're a role model for people that want to give to their community. You know, in essence, you're just a role model just because your energy. It's not just light and airy, but it has substance behind it.
Mhm.
How do you plan to intentionally pass this down? Your mindset, or even how you think about things, um, and lessons you've learned to the next generation.
By not talking too much, allowing my actions to speak for me. I know a lot of things people always say in the church when it comes to their first ladies is that she just shows so much grace. She's just the epitome of grace, the way she walks, the way she talks. I think by letting my actions speak for myself, it will gravitate people towards me, and then God will give me the words to say. I don't really have to do too much thinking. I always pray every morning, like, God, speak to me, move to me, like, remove me out of the way so that I can show you. So I think being action focused
Mhm.
is how I want to allow people to see themselves in me and walk through that.
I think that's really powerful. I'm excited to see, what God has in store for you, or where your life takes you, in whichever state you go to, or whichever city. I know you'll bless. I know the city will only get better because you're in it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
No, it's good. It's good. It ain't. It's not warranted. It's all you. I'm not doing nothing but just seeing it. So, you mind letting the people know how can they find you? How can they get in touch with you? Or, how could they even get a part of the church? If they're in the Houston area, or they just around and they want to get back.
Yeah, so for me personally, you can follow me on Instagram. My handle is EssenceofAlexus. You can add me, connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Alexus Terry. And if you would like to join the church or even just watch a live, because as of right now, my pastor is still going live. His username is Speak Well Bishop. And you can find our specific church on YouTube under the Promise Center Church. And yeah, I think that's it.
All right. That's plenty. That's plenty to get people started. Well, thank you for your time. It's been wonderful. And I'm excited to see where the world has to take you.
Yes, and thank you for inviting me. I had a blast.
No, it was fun. It was a nice community, just conversation.
Yes.